If you want to get drunk during the broadcast, it's fine.
And just drink whatever I like, though. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. And we know what you like. One, two, three. Welcome to Drinking on the Edge. I'm David Fuhr, its host, here at Radio Free Rhinecliff, along steps away from the chilly mid-Hudson River, smack dab between Albany and Penn Station in Manhattan. Joining me here is the sometime co-host, my friend Carlo DeVito.
Hello, thank you.
And he's here today because we're going to be talking about one of his favorite, most written about subjects, him being an author himself, American Single Malt Whiskeys. Helping us here behind the turntables is our producer, Matt Mercier. But here to talk about the whiskeys are two gentlemen who are key to the understanding of and appreciation of this American Single Malt Whiskey concept. Joining us from his home state of Virginia at the eponymously named Virginia Distilling is Gareth Moore, who's the CEO and president of this distillery. Welcome, Gareth. And you're also here representing an association you helped to found, the American Single Malt Whiskey Association. Whew.
That's a mouthful.
Some good words all put together.
A busy man. He's got a day job, too, and a gentleman who helped to define, as he has for a great many years, one of the OGs of the American craft spirits world, whiskey in particular, but spirits in general. Great author, great wordsmith. The man's got a podcast of his own. He's got books as well, worth checking out. None other than Lew Bryson. Welcome to Drinking on the Edge, Lew.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Wish I was in Rhinecliff. I actually do. I like it there.
That would be dangerous, let's be honest.
And we got a sunny day to enjoy a great many single malts that we've been gifted by some of these distilleries, but that you and Carlo chose for us. I'd like it if you and Gareth would walk us through what is single malt as it pertains to whiskeys in general, and specifically, what is this new thing called American Single Malt?
I'm happy to take a first stab at it, and then anything I get wrong, Luke can hop in. But obviously, I'm coming from the American Single Malt perspective. But when the definition was proposed by the association and the various suppliers, the spirit was fitting in what the local consumer was expecting with what single malt means. And those two words, single, being coming from one distillery, not blended from multiple distilleries, and the second word, malt, referring to malted barley. So those were the two core tenets of the definition that just made sense to match global definitions. And then, of course, there's other corresponding, each country has their own definition beyond that of whether you used or new wood, what type of stills you can use, age statements, and that sort of thing. But maybe talking about the global standards, I'd embarrass myself, so I'll hand it over to Lew.
I think you got the core thing, and that's the common thing to every single malt, no matter where it comes from. Single, one distillery, it's a product of one distillery, and it could come in many forms from that distillery. And the other one is malt, and it's that the whiskey is made 100% from malt and no other grains. Barley malt, specifically. Pretty sure the new definition does specify barley malt. Is that correct?
Correct. Or not, that was actually somewhat controversial because you can malt a lot of different things.
I remember one of the first, what everybody referred to as single malts was Old Portero. Is that what it was called? And that was Portero. And that was a 100% malted rye as opposed to barley. So, yeah, that's an important.
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of discussion about that. Is that a single malt?
No.
Regulatorily, it's not.
And there was a malted whiskey category within the existing TTB standards that they go back years and years, but that only required 51% malted, and it didn't necessarily have to be barley. And so getting into the global standards with the goal of saying that was 100% and it's malted barley can be the big differentiator.
A lot of those, I just finished writing another whiskey book, and one of the things I did was essentially tear apart the regulations and take a look at them, the standards of identity. And there's all those whiskeys are essentially, it's bourbon, but not corn. That's what that malt whiskey definition was. Everything exactly the same as the definition of bourbon, except 51% malt.
Yeah, not exactly a standard that's discernible.
It's pretty much unique to us.
It's whiskey. Let's be honest. It's just whiskey at that point.
So many people will tell you, like, I don't like whiskey, but I like bourbon.
So getting back to the idea of the history of the single malt, this concept, the Old Potrero that used to be run by Mr. Fritz Maytag and all that dates back to what year was that, more or less?
93, maybe?
Somewhere
94?
around there, yeah.
Early 90s, okay.
Yeah.
And since that time, the concept has grown. More people are doing something of that, and it's not necessarily rye. So in that, how did this all kind of grow, and how did it come to that an association about this subject would be created?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. No. Gareth, go.
You spoke to the relatively long history, not nearly as long as Scotland or Ireland or even Japan, but there have been producers of American single malts for decades and decades. But it wasn't until 2016 at the American Craft Spirits Association conference in Chicago when it was the first formal meeting of the predecessor to the formal association, or the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, as we call it. And that was a group of the producers at the time, full list, but the usual suspects, right? It's Westland and Westward and Balcones and Stranahan, ourselves, and several others. And really the first order of business was trying to figure out what the proposed definition would be. And that was something I think certainly myself, but others were bracing for, call it a contentious definition, because everybody had different styles, different types of stills, different types of wood approach, different aging. But ultimately it was, I guess it spoke to the relative unity across the industry that following that global standard of single medium one distillery and malt, medium malted barley, it was fairly easy to come to that consensus that that's what we wanted. And then the other bits and pieces were really of the proposed definition were really around the existing whiskey standards, as Lew was referring to early. The very obvious one being that it has to be mash distilled and matured all in the United States of America, matured in oak casks of a capacity not exceeding 700 liters, which is pretty darn big.
Yeah.
Distilled to no more than 160 proof and bottled at no less than 80 proof. So that was the that was the definition that everybody circulated around, and without a lot of controversy, which was great. And then from there kicked off the full 8-year process to lobby the federal government to formalize the definition in the Standards of Identity. So that was how it got started. And looking at the announcement from TTB last month, and I suppose it was only formally enacted in last week here, that's really the end of the story, or the end of the beginning, as some people said, for the commission. The beginning portion being ratifying formal identity for American single malt, and then the beginning of now bringing that out to the masses, marketing and educating to consumers and retailers and distributors, and growing the category.
I think there is going to be a certain amount of education needed. I have to be honest, I needed to be convinced on this category. I really did. And it's only happened relatively recently. And then when I finally got, and it bothers me that it took me this long, because it took me this long to understand that it is not supposed to be Scotch. That's why it's called American Single Malt. And then I kept thinking, wow, this isn't then it finally dawned on me that this is no more Scotch than Canadian whiskey is American rye whiskey.
Right.
No, they're not the same. And to try to hold them to, it's not like this, so it must be wrong.
It must
it's
be
not like
lesser.
This. It's because it's different. It's because it's this over here. So the education process is going to be ongoing.
Just to pick your brain on that, when you said it took you some time to support the category in general, what was your thought process, and what won you over?
I think what finally won me over was actually that Canadian conceptualization. It took me, I was not a fan of Canadian until 2014 when I went to Canada and did a lot of research on Canadian whiskey for my tasting whiskey book. And I got to spend 4 days on the road with Davin DeCurgamo. Wrote the Canadian whiskey book. He's enthusiastic. He's knowledgeable. He knows everybody in the industry. And I sat down with some Canadian distillers, and they made it pretty darn clear to me that what I was thinking should be Canadian whiskey. And I cringe at even saying that out loud. Who cares what I think? This is the stuff. And just like that, we talk about Monongahela rye. What is Monongahela rye? As I have said a couple of times, we don't really know because these guys were too busy making whiskey. They weren't really making rules.
Right.
No,
there were no rules.
They were making, and that's what you guys didn't know. You managed to do both at the same time. But I think the rules are a reflection of the whiskey that you have been making. I find it quite telling that we didn't slavishly follow the must be made with a pot still that the Scots have. I think that's good because I know there are Scotch distilleries that have stills that don't quite qualify as pot stills, and it's irksome that's not considered single malt because they're good whiskeys.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have that freedom.
And that was certainly something when advocating for the category that we wanted to make sure that we didn't make anything too tight so that there wasn't room for innovation, wasn't room for differentiation, certainly from Scotch.
Yeah.
Not requiring a minimum age statement because the climate's different here, right? If you're aging in Texas, that's very different than if you're up in Denver or if you're in Central Virginia, and all those are very different from Scotland. Then requirement of use or new oak, I think having that flexibility in a relatively new category allows a lot of room for continued innovation. So I'm excited about that for the future of seeing new producers coming online, fitting in those relatively simple definitions of a single distillery and malted barley, but then from there, the world's the oyster to experiment with and innovate.
I guess
the Scots managed to come up with really different tasting whiskeys with even tighter definitions. I think we're going to see some interesting stuff.
I agree.
I'm curious, what's the motivation for a distiller to craft a single malt if they're already having success in other types of whiskey?
So one of the earliest single malt distillers was Lance Winters at St. George, and they're bringing out their 25th, I believe, this year. And Baller is a wonderful whiskey. We got a sample of it that I'm really looking forward to diving into. The thing is, I remember Lance made his first batch of single malt as essentially his resume, his calling card. This is the whiskey I want to make for you. And from what I understand, it got him the job. Single malt it's one of those things like I smoke meat. I like running a smoker. I've been doing it for quite a while. I'm not considered a real smoker because I don't do brisket. It's almost like you have to make single malt to be taken seriously because of how important and how huge Scotch is in the category.
I equate it, why did California make Cabernet Sauvignon when you've already got great wines coming out of Bordeaux? It's not the point. It's the brass ring that everybody wants to grasp.
Yeah,
and I have to tell you, that's Davin DeCurgamo's line, so I want to give him full credit. Single malt whiskey is the brass ring of whiskey, and it's the highest expression of what people consider around the world globally. If you go into a duty-free shop, it's dominated by single malt whiskey, no matter where you go. And so that is one of the big goals to be accomplished, to say, I have accomplished something.
Is that where you're coming from, Gareth? Or is it something else?
I think those are really good points. And with, I guess, the dominance of Scotch out there, looking for a definition from our perspective was about kind of legitimacy and clarity, right? Legitimacy in the sense that we are a recognized category that fits with global standards. Bourbon is not the only type of American whiskey or rye. There's other types out there. And then clarity that we're all playing from the same playbook, that it's 100% malted barley, not 51%, not different types of malted grains. So by getting both of those in there, I think we got the recognition that the category needed to play with the global domination from Scotch and even Ireland and Japan.
I was going to say, you can't forget Japan and what they've been able to accomplish.
I think it's telling that Jim Beam has made a single malt now.
Yeah, Jim Beam and Jack Daniels have both made
whiskey.
Single malts. It's where everybody wants to try to get to.
Sure.
Given all this, it would seem to me that this is a logical next step in the craft whiskey rise here in the U.S., that category legislated and recognized and respected and desired for category as single malt, American single malt, has been created and developed out of so many hardworking distillers and bartenders and salespeople working to convince the American and ex-American consumers about the validity of craft American whiskeys. So why not have an American single malt to put a crowning top to it all?
I just want to make a real quick point.
Yeah.
The idea of single malt as a consumer product in the United States only dates back to 1964.
Oh, yeah.
When Glenfiddich was first introduced. Yep. And it took 10 years for the next copycat product, which was Glenlivet, to come on board. That's how long it took the American consumer to come to single malt whiskey. So this is not an easy process. Somebody getting into this business has to have a long range viewpoint on this. This is the long play. This is not a short way to make money.
Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody's gone in with their eyes wide open with that. Distillers are naturally patient people. And whether it's aging whiskey or whether it's building a brand or whether it's getting a category recognized, those things all take time. In the big picture, 8 years is not going to be that long of a period that it actually took to get the category recognized. When you think about the longer tail, it's likely going to take to get the education piece out there to consumers. Just to Carl's point on how long it took for Scottish single malts to take hold, 10 years to get scale, really probably half a generation. So we're really locked into that long-term horizon to get to the global recognition that we're aiming for. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in just one decade, much longer horizon than that.
I think it's also...
Yeah, I think...
Go ahead. No, Lou, you go ahead.
Sorry. No, someone from Chavis, I remember telling me Glenlivet is a huge single malt brand just on its own. I think he said in the mid-70s, they were selling about 70,000 cases. That's it. That's all, which is
nothing for them.
Sneeze.
Yeah. I was going to say the other fascinating part is that it's always been a curmudgeonly audience that drinks this particular stuff. Let's be honest. David Stewart introduced finishing whiskeys with the Balvenie, and he was roundly not applauded, let's put it that way, for doing that and cheapening the concept of single malt whiskey. And of course, now today, it's almost the standard of higher end whiskeys. So it's a strange audience that goes for it, but it's a dedicated audience. And once they latch onto something, they are very loyal buyers.
I was just thinking about when you said that, Pete, in the early 90s, distilleries on Isla were closing. And now there's, 3 new ones, 4 new ones?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing how, and to your point, 8 to 10 years sounds like a long time, but in the whiskey business, it's nothing.
Yeah. Gareth, I actually had a question. You mentioned about how long it took the dream of an American single malt category to come to fruition. It's actually been sitting with the TTB for almost 3 years. Any insight on why that took so long?
Yeah, hopefully nobody from the TTB is listening. Fundamentally, they move at the speed of government, and that there's always competing priorities at any given time. They had all these priorities around there's a bunch of antitrust investigation they were supporting, other new categories, some of the craft tax modernization, and some of the transfers of some of those interests and that sort of thing. So we unfortunately were towards the bottom of the list of priorities for a good 2.5 years, as you mentioned, because the notice of proposed rulemaking, which was kind of initial dangle of hope in December of 2022, they kicked off a 60-day period for comments to go inbound. There was just under 200 comments that were submitted. And then, just like you said, another 2.5 years until they got to read all the comments and get through all the bureaucratic steps to make that announcement. But in some sense, easy to say it now that we're the other side of the finish line. But in some sense, you understand why the TTB doesn't want to create a new category every year for every new type of whiskey, right? There has to be some sort of critical mass. There has to be some growth to the industry, interest from the general public to have something defined. Of course, we're on the other side of the finish line, but yeah, certainly worth it at this point.
I suppose you had to have a certain amount of faith at one point that the stuff you were making was actually going to fall into the regulations that they decided on.
And there were producers out there that had, small and sometimes large things they were worried about, whether it was from age statements, because in that comment period, there were international trade associations, who I won't name, that said that there should be an age statement consistent with their country's age statement, which didn't make a lot of sense. There were other comments, folks that had been using less than 100% malted barley, or folks that had been using other malted grains. And there was the discussion of used wood, like the Scots, new wood, and that would be very divisive across the industry. My distillery, we're all used wood. A lot of others are 100% new woods, and a lot somewhere in between. So yeah, it was good to end with a definition from the government that was fitting for, I think, 99.9% of the producers out there.
I just thought the definition was broad enough. It wasn't too restrictive, but at the same time, it wasn't so open-sided that it didn't really matter. It didn't really define anything. I thought they did a pretty decent job, which really means that your group did a pretty decent job, because it hews pretty closely to what you suggested.
That's right. I don't think there was anything major that
No.
that primary thing.
Speaking of which, how many members in your association there, Gareth?
There's well over 100 producers out there, and hundreds of expressions of American Single Malt Whiskey. And then there's a core group, I think, of about a dozen that are the board members of the association that get together once a month for many months, just to bemoan the speed of the ratification happening.
That talking point has been taken away from you now.
Yeah, exactly. Now we have to go out and do work.
And now you got to work.
Oh, yeah.
Now you got to
For a long
work.
time, it was just the hurry up and wait game. But now it's
What do you do with
going
success?
out and enjoying it, but getting the message out there. At every level of the industry, from distributors to retailers to consumers, there's just a lot of education out there. We're not just, we're American whiskey, so you mean bourbon. No, we're single malt. Oh, so you mean Scotch. No, we're in a category now that's recognized not as miscellaneous whiskey, which is really where we fit with this other category. Searching online, or certainly on the retail shelf. And that was a challenge for us, because there's not a lot of consumers out there that would say, hey, I'm in the mood for some miscellaneous whiskey. Nobody goes to the miscellaneous.
Yeah, it lacks a certain panache, doesn't it?
Look, the practical side of it is, if you're running a liquor store, where does this go? Somewhere between bourbon and rye and Scotch, or that kind of thing. And so that's the toughest part. That's going to be one of the tougher parts as you move forward. My favorite was when I first started writing about single malts from around the world. If I looked for McCarthy's, I could find it if I went to 6 different stores, I found it in 6 different spots. And that was one of the first American single malts. And sometimes it was in the Scotch section. Sometimes it was next to Germany, Ireland. And you're like, what the hell is it doing there? It was insane. Very funny.
So the American Single Malt Whiskey Association, I encourage people to go to the website to see the member distilleries who are part of Gareth's organization, his included. Gareth, are they generally hyperlinked so people can, when they see their local distillery on there, they can get bumped from your site to those members?
Yeah. AmericanSingleMaltWhiskey.org is the website. You can see all sorts of celebratory things on the website right now, given it was just a month ago that we got the great news. But it'll have a list of the members and links to all those websites and some of the other initiatives in terms of marketing and education that we're working on.
And from that, we are going to have Lew and Carlo decide how we're going to continue with our tasting here of these alluded to whiskeys. Gentlemen?
Lew, should we make Gareth go first, last, in the middle? Where do you want to start?
Unfortunately, we don't have Gareth here. It's
I'm
still on the way. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
That
I'm
said,
looking all over the bottle. I'm looking for it.
that said, he's got a shout out just the same.
Absolutely.
Lew, do you have the whole list in front of you, or
The bottle's there.
I don't have the list. I have the bottles sitting here.
That's even better.
that's better.
It is better. It works for me. I got to be honest. I really want to try the 10 mile.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we got a few examples from the local, relatively speaking, distillery out of Millbrook across the Taconic Parkway from us here in Rhinecliff. We have the 2 Little Rests, I believe it is. We got sent the Classic 4-year and the Oloroso Sherry Barreled 3-year.
So this is a relatively new distillery. It's owned by John Dyson, who also owns William Sellium and a number of other large wineries around the world, quality wineries, I should say, around around the world. And the distiller, suddenly now I can't remember his name, is also a distiller at Oban. So he splits his time between Oban and the Little Round, which is actually not.
So he's got some chops.
Yeah.
All right, so I've just poured small tastes of these little rests for Carlo and I.
Yep.
I've had the pleasure of tasting these here at my local farmers market in Rhinebeck. When the folks at 10 Mile make a monthly appearance at my weekly farmers market here, I've enjoyed them, and they're very, very happy that Carlo and I are doing extra coverage. I made sure they were covered in my report about the Rhinebeck farmers market as well.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to do the 4-year first.
So just my reports my reports can be as hyper local as right here in Rhinebeck. They can be very national throughout the United States. And I talked to winemakers and distillers from as far away as New Zealand and South Africa, and as well as Europe.
Didn't get much farther than that.
So this is the 4-year-old.
This is the 4-year-old.
Oh, that slips down easy.
Yeah, that's really well-rounded for a 4-year-old.
That's a pretty darn good. I want to say that's what I was going to say. There's a pretty darn good Scotch. Can't say that. Damn it. Really is that's a really nice.
Watching the clock, gentlemen.
Very fruit forward.
Yes.
Watching the clock, gents. We're going to have to speed through these. We got a lot to go through and not much time to do.
Sure.
On to the Oloroso.
You want to hit that Oloroso?
Yes, please. And just the
color.
Yeah. Point of reference. I don't think they add any Oloroso sherry into it. I think it's just imparted by the barrel itself. That's where dark sherry would have rested. Point of reference, the first one was clocking in at 46 ABV, with the second one here is 60.7 ABV.
A bit more.
Big jump.
Oh, yeah.
Don't stick your nose in that.
Oh, baby.
Definitely got that heavily roasted nut character that Oloroso sherry will have.
Oh, no, that goes down very smooth. Wow.
Yeah, that's harder on my nose hairs than it is on my palate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I concur. Absolutely
Right?
concur. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little rough in the nose, but my God, on the mouth.
It's funny. Usually at this, I would
It
want
is hot on the nose, right?
Yes, very. But at the same time, on the palate, it is super smooth. It's easy.
Yeah.
I really thought I was going to need water to really.
3 years old.
My gosh. That's a heck of a whiskey.
Kudos. Gentlemen, what's the next round up here after 10 Mile? What's the 11-mile whiskey we're going to?
I picked yours. Your turn.
My turn?
Yeah.
Is it too early to go to the baller?
Well, we can keep it local. Hey, guys, I'm going to intercede. Sorry about that. We can keep it local. Let's keep it local to
Let's keep it local.
John Henry.
Let's do the John Henry. I've had the John Henry before. Know Derek Grout very well. Good friend of mine.
And he was a previous guest here when we covered apple brandies.
And he's a really exceptional distiller. He's very hardcore. He's very all about being as authentic as possible. And I really have always liked this whiskey. A very light. It's got all those. To me, it's got all the cognac notes that you look for in a high quality single malt. So this is
nearby.
This is all local.
Just across the river, and just across the river.
No, up the river. He's on this side.
I get mixed up.
Yeah, he's in Columbia County.
Right.
No, his family owns one of the largest apple orchards in the county. They make an exquisite 25-year-old apple brandy, and this is their. I think this is their. Is this the regular John Henry, or is this the 5 or 10 year?
I have just the regular.
It's a single malt.
Yeah, that's their regular. They have released, I think, a 6-year-old one as well.
I'll tell you, that is a shockingly soft nose after those last two.
Which comports with their apple brandy style. Their Cornelius that Carlo was just referring to is a very soft, supple, easy one. Definitely managed, but not a blockbuster in style.
He has a very light hand, and that's how he likes to do it. And I have to tell you, I've sat by many a fire sipping this stuff, and it's just, it really is fabulous. It's a little tough to take after we just had 112.
Weak on it.
You know what?
Oh, yeah, but I think it's got enough going on.
I'd like it. It doesn't have the pear quality of it, but I would liken this a lot to the Glenfiddich style. If you want to it's a good starter single malt for someone who's maybe not be accustomed to them. All right, moving on from the Hudson Valley. Let's get out of the Hudson Valley and move up, guys, to other parts of the U.S. I'll leave it to you.
You want to try New Riff?
Sure.
Old Larry Ebersold.
Okay, so New Riff is in an opaque black bottle, unusual, frosted glass.
Very tall bottle as well.
Yes.
Probably not the favorite thing of retailers. Fine at the bar, but a little tough if you're...
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't fit on a lot of shelves.
No.
Yeah, I remember my days trying to stock wines from Alsace in the fluted bottles. That was
yeah.
always a terror for me back then.
Always a terror when you're trying to stack them in a box. And
But
you're like, what the hell?
New Riff has made a point of putting on their label here. It's a sour mash Kentucky single malt. Cask strength without chill filtration. Clocking in at 57.25 alcohol. And they say aged at least 7 years. This bottling was fall 2024.
I think they've been doing some great stuff over at New Riff, so I'm a big fan.
Yes. Oh my. That's quite different.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some smoke in there.
Yep. A little
I'm
bit
not
of
sure
smoke.
what kind of smoke it is. Oh, and it is done in the column still.
It's got a bit of a bite at the back.
Almost like mesquite.
Yes. That's a good descriptor. I agree.
Huh. How about that?
So if we were driving a car, they can make the corollary of this. We're going to all sorts of directions, back and forth, slow and fast. This is an interesting ride we're going on already. Okay, we've just begun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something where...
Yeah, we've gone a couple different directions there.
What was the ABV on that, if I may ask?
57.25.
Oh, that's a big whiskey.
That is a big whiskey.
That's a big whiskey.
That might benefit from some water.
Exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I could put an ice cube in that and not feel ashamed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know serious single malters don't like the whole ice conversation.
Let's steer clear. Let's steer clear of that. We got too much on our plate, guys. What's next?
Do you want to do well? We have Cedar Ridge. What else is there?
I was thinking, why don't we stay on the East Coast, finish that off, and do Old Line?
Excellent.
Old Line it is.
Yeah.
We got two examples from them. We got their flagship at 95 proof, and then we got their Navy strength at 114 proof.
I really like these guys. I got to meet them down in Baltimore. Nice people.
Oh yeah, there you go. They're relatively new, Lew, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the first one? What's the difference between the two? I apologize.
95 and 114 proofs.
Okay.
Yeah. One's indicated as flagship, the other is Navy.
Okay, flagship. Bit of a shy nose.
I'd say the same on the palate. A little bit. It's coming out in the finish.
Yeah.
Slow. It's got a slow start, but it comes up a bit.
It
Nice.
reminds me a little bit of rye almost.
May have a bit. Who knows?
Shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't.
Oh, of course not.
Might be a rye barrel.
That could be.
Interesting. Okay, and then the second one is what?
So just
Navy strength.
Just to be clear, even if the rye was malted, it would be disallowed under the current regulations, Gareth.
Correct.
Okay. So
Exactly.
It's about the grain as much as it is the malting of the grain.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
I like the Navy.
I like that better. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got a lot to say.
Yeah. That's a chewy whiskey. There's a lot of stuff there going on. You can
Yeah, it's not just stronger.
No, it's not. There's a lot more flavor going on there. You could chew on that over a couple of glasses of stuff to figure out everything.
Yeah, that's
in there.
a good finish too.
Yeah, I agree.
If that was the intent of the distiller, I'm sure it's making the marketing salespeople happy because it got two different directions to sell. Hey, if you don't like this style, I got this style to show you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Interesting. But I like that second. That Navy was pretty.
Yeah.
Good. That was pretty interesting. I like that.
What's up next, guys?
Lew?
Gonna do the Cedar Ridge?
Cedar Ridge. Yeah, let's do Cedar Ridge.
Yeah.
I'm dying to do Cedar Ridge. Let's see what they're doing.
Yeah. Do you have two of these, or is it just me that has two of these?
I have just the one that was sent to me.
That's because they like
Okay.
you. They like you better.
This one, mine's
Laura always oversends to me.
what I have here is labeled the quintessential signature blend, American Single Malt Whiskey. That's confusing. They call it a signature blend, even though it's a single malt whiskey. That's destined to.
It's a vatting. The Scots struggle with this too.
Okay, this is listed at 92 proof. Lots of information.
Are
on the
are
front
we
label.
allowed to use? Are they allowed to use the word vatting anymore? Has that been?
It was on the new Riff one. Oh, are the Scots?
Yeah. No.
Not as an official part of the label. No.
Got it.
So Cedar Ridge is from Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah.
And
Really one of the better distilleries in the Midwest.
I got to tell you, this whiskey, the quintessential, this is the one that woke me up.
Oh, is that right? Interesting.
This is the one.
this is the one that turned your head around to giving your thumbs up to
On American Single Malt. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Oh, that's really
Just a-
pretty.
Baby.
Oh, wow. And it's light. It's not a heavy whiskey. It's not it's not a big, chewy, like a pound you whiskey. This is a
But it does fill your mouth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is so much flavor there.
I was really impressed with this.
I can see why. That's a really nice
And I'll tell you
whiskey.
what, at 92 proof, it's not bashful.
No, that's a really nice whiskey. I wonder what the barrel proof at 112. I wonder what that's like. But that's damn good. That's damn good. David, we'll be wrestling over that bottle later.
Nah. There's so many good ones here, Carlo.
There are an awful lot of good ones here.
It ain't worth my time to argue about it all. Okay, but I got to push you guys. What's next?
Do you want to stay in the Rocky Mountains, or do you want to go down to Texas?
Let's do the Texas. Let's get that right on the plate.
You got it. Now, this is one of the big whiskeys that certainly turned a lot of heads, around 2014, 2013?
Yeah, fairly early on.
Yeah, they won the World Single Malt Contest, if you will. I don't have a better competition. It's a horrible contest. And they, at the time, Chip Tate was the owner, master distiller, and this just blew everybody away. It was a massive surprise.
I'm just thinking everyone has a Chip Tate in a bar story.
No, this is lovely though. This is classic Balcones single malt. It's got that real richness up front,
oily,
to it. And it's got that
little bit floral.
Yeah, super floral, and you get that sort of greenness somewhere in the flavor as somewhere else.
Very good drink. Very good drink.
And it's unique. It's not.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's a really unique whiskey, and it's amazing. So I'm a big fan of that one.
Oh, that's good.
So you want to do Stranahan next, or do you want to, because the rest is all West Coast, right?
I guess so. Okay, then. The folks at Stranahans were generous enough to send us 4, but we've got to keep it to 2. We got little time. So we're going to go with the original and then the Mountain Angel 12-year-old.
Blue Peak. Since there was no age statement, I just figured maybe it's safer to try that first. Not safer, but whatever. Wait, where did you just pour mine?
Okay. So apparently this is a controversial thing in the Facebook whiskey groups, but I'm getting that circus peanut thing.
I know what you're talking about.
Like spongy orange candy. Yeah, you only ever smell it. Nobody actually eats them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That takes me back.
Yeah.
It's a lovely whiskey, though.
Okay.
It doesn't come across on
That's
the
a
palate.
nice whiskey.
That's a very nice whiskey. That's a good. That's a good sipping whiskey. That's the kind of thing you could just sit. And what was the proof on that, if I may ask? That was 80.
I don't think it's listed.
I don't know. We just got an experimental bottle label.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Not a lot of information.
No info.
It's amazing to me how many distillers have worked at Stranahan's. When you go out west, there's so many. It's like a graduate school out there.
Yeah, it's like a training school. Yeah.
It's a nice whiskey.
Yeah.
Okay, on to this 12-year-old.
Now you have something for Read It.
That same aromatic, that circus peanut thing carries through on this as well. This is a bit denser, heavier, more aromatically complex though. This 12-year-old.
The flavor lasts on this though. This is a little chewier. You can sit there and ruminate on it as you go through.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's more stuff comes out.
Yeah. The longer you sit with it, the longer that starts to come out.
All right.
I like that. I like that second one. The 12-year-old is nice.
Cool. Yeah, and there's some big legs on that 12-year-old.
Yes, there are. Wow, we're racing through this.
Oh man. Oh, do yourself a favor and put a little water in there.
Oh yeah. All right. Can you?
Oh baby.
Throw me that too?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think.
Oh yeah.
Holy crap! How strong are you?
I think that might just be the whiskey. We got the Westland.
Yeah. What do we have left?
Westland, Westward, and 2 from St. George.
Okay, I never did get the Westward.
Okay.
I'll have to sit back and listen to that one.
All right, let's do that. Carl and I can race through that quickly.
Sure.
Without as
That's the cask strength?
It is the. Oh, Lord.
Oh, you're right, Lou. A little bit of water on that went a long way.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Good hint.
No indication of cask strength. I'm having a hard time making out what the alcohol is anywhere on this label, though I'm sure it is here.
That's because it's all got that glossy, fabulous print.
Can't make it out here. It's got to be somewhere by law. So
yeah, it's somewhere on there.
All right, never mind. We're just going to get the taste.
Yes.
So it's got a blue label embossed with gold.
Very pretty.
Yeah, it sounds almost Wedgwoody.
Yes.
These folks are in Oregon.
Does that have almost like a kind of meaty nose?
Perhaps.
Not mead, but meaty.
Meat, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps. But I'd say a real fruity taste. Oh my gosh. A little bit it's got a slightly viscous concentrated sitting in the mouth. And again, the fruity, it's pear fruits. Tree fruits. I hope it's not my association with Oregon being a great place for that that's biasing me, but that's what's there.
Oh.
No, that's what's there. It's cognac-y in that way, which is good.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Although it's got the malt comes through on the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a nice whiskey. It's very dense.
Oof.
Yeah, they definitely know their malt.
Oh, yeah. All right, what are we pouring next?
Now it's Westland. We got their flagship here, Westland.
Okay.
That's 46
Yep.
alcohol by volume. They sent us a very lovely compact squat half bottle. These folks are from Burlington, Washington.
One of my favorite West Coast producers. You have this one, Lew? You have this one, right?
I do. Yep. A little bit of smoke, nice amount of fruit. Yeah.
That's nice. That's pretty damn nice. That's classic.
Yeah, I got to say, for an ordinary bottling, that's pretty good.
That's really good.
Oh.
Wow.
Is that a smokiness on the finish I'm picking up? All right.
Wow. Makes me want to wear Harris tweed. It's nice. It's nice, though. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, then capping off of the day, we got the two from St. George, their single malt, and then their baller, which you'll inform us about a bit more here.
So would you want to do the other one first? We'll do baller last.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because there's a bit of a twist there. It's a type of cask they're using.
Yeah,
It's different.
yeah.
So he first is the standard single malt distilled from barley malt mash. And the folks at St. George are...
Sorry, I have a little,
it's all right.
little trouble with the cap here.
For Christmas next year, I'm buying us all squeeze balls. We got to get back on the...
And St. George was a previous guest here at Drinking on the Edge with our absinthe episode.
Yeah, they were in the absinthe episode.
We had fun with that one.
Lovely nose. Delicate. That's a very delicate nose. Wow, almost. That's like almost fruity, isn't it? It's very
Is
aromatic.
it fruity or is it floral or is
It's a
it...
combination of the two. It's almost.
Yeah.
It's weird like that. It's a very pretty. Not what I was expecting, though.
And it's worth mentioning to
And I
those
like the
folks listening
smoke that's not peat.
It's worth mentioning that folks listening from states where these are not distilled, or from New York State or other states that have the luxury of lots of distribution to them, that some of these bottlings, some of these producers are available in a great number of markets, including yours in whatever small state you might reside in or whatever country that you might be in, not here in the U.S. I know for a fact that the folks at St. George's are, based upon our previous encounters with them, they're available in most U.S. states with most of their products, and in a great number of countries throughout the world. So as not to make this an advertising just for them, I'm guessing very much is the same with the likes of New Riff and Balcones, given their ownership and their marketing strategies. Gentlemen, if you have anything to add to that, I'd be glad to hear it. Because we do have people tuning in from all over the world.
Yeah, that's the thing about what's happening with American single malt, to my understanding, which is that some of them have made it out, as it were, but that there are some brands that are fairly ubiquitous. I'm a pretty avid liquor shopper, and I'm always looking to scan the shelves to see what I don't know about, see who I haven't tried yet, what's new on the market. And slowly, these single malts have been making their way to market. And of course, the fun of it is too going to some of these places when you can, visiting your local distillery and checking it out. Because for every one of those, there's 5 or 6 that just don't have the quantity to get out. And so there are a lot of great little distilleries all over the U.S. and Canada who are making single malt. And that's, I think, why the ASM designation was so important, because it started to become a bigger thing, and you want to make sure that the people are doing it right.
And I would add doing it right for the consumers, and that the consumer has some idea what it is.
Right. And what to
That's
expect.
the biggest reason to do these nomenclature things.
So as we're winding into our last sample to be tasted, I'm curious, Gareth, does your association have anything planned in 2025 to help to expand ASM and its marketing, communications, events? Anything you and your board have made for public consumption yet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we were saying earlier, getting the ratification was just the first phase of the mission, and now we're moving on to the education and promotion phase. And so we have a lot of things that we're working on. I don't know how many I might be speaking out of school with any specifics, but we're going to be doing some joint events across the industry. We know the normal slew of events that get people out to Colorado or Arizona or San Francisco. We'll be doing kind of joint booths and that sort of thing. We're also doing some marketing programs to certain retailers regionally and nationally to get that big first step of creating a single malt whiskey shelf. And then, of course, along with that goes promotion and tastings and advertising to ensure that consumers know about it. So we're excited for it, but we've had years to plan. So now it's time to go execute.
Now you can start pulling. Now that you can start pulling the trigger instead of just putting bullets in the gun.
Time to plan is a good thing.
Yeah.
And lastly, we have the baller that's been alluded to already a couple times in high tones here by both Carlo and Lew. Let's taste that, gentlemen, and wrap this up. So this is unique in as much, at least according to the label here, it is aged in umeshu, cask finished umeshu, which has got to be a special kind of wood. So according to the back label, it's aged in used American whiskey and French oak wine casks and filtered through maple charcoal, then take an extra step, finishing the whiskey casks that held umeshu, a Japanese stone fruit liqueur. So basically, this is finished in a cask that held a Japanese stone fruit liqueur called umeshu. Umeshu. Ume is plum. And there you go. That's their twist.
Will this qualify, say, next year, as it were? As a single malt,
isn't it?
What's that?
Finishing and all the other standards that apply to whiskey you can do, right? Everything from bottled bond to applying the word straight to anything else like that.
I think that's an amazing whiskey. That could take a page and a half to describe just off the bat.
It definitely picked up some
I gotta tell you,
plum character there. Whew. Yes.
Now that I finally have a full bottle of it, I can't wait to make a highball with it.
Interesting. So let me ask you.
Because all I ever had before was a 50 ml, and I was like,
so that's a good question that I found hard to answer. It. You're certainly much more experienced than I am, but I'll give classes and what have you, and people will be like, "What cocktails do you make with a single malt whiskey?" And I was like, most single malt whiskey buyers would probably break your fingers before you reach for a mixer. And I guess my question is, other than a Rob Roy or what have you, what are we making? I once made a rusty nail with a 50-year-old pinch and a 50-year-old bottle of Drambuie, so it was fun. But how many people do drink single malt whiskey not in a cocktail?
Yeah, it's a rarity, man.
not many.
I think that's part of the
Not many.
education process. I think that has to happen.
Gareth, do you have anything to counter that? Is there something you enjoy with your single malt as a cocktail?
Not me personally. I'm more of a neat sipper, but so ultimately the best whiskey is the whiskey you like. And in general, I'd say for the new oak side of the category, that's more traditional American cocktails, like a Manhattan or a fashion makes sense. And for those that are more of the used wood, closer to Scotch, some of those you're just saying where penicillin might fit well. Ultimately, it's however you like it, right?
That's all right. Look, gentlemen, thank you again for joining us here on Drinking on the Edge for this episode on American Single Malt. Gareth Moore of Virginia Distillery, and go to AmericanSingleMaltWhiskey.com. Is that correct?
.org.
.org, even better. AmericanSingleMaltWhiskey.org to see what's going on and about all this category and all its members. Lew Bryson, thank you for joining us. I would for this first time at Drinking on the Edge, what I hope will not be the last.
Absolute pleasure.
And you got some things going on. Tell people about it, please.
I do have a new whiskey book coming in the fall. It's going to be American Whiskey Masterclass, an American focus on my previous book, Whiskey Masterclass, diving even deeper into flavor and aroma creation. I also do my own podcast on food and drink in central Pennsylvania called Seen Through a Glass.
Seen Through a Glass.
And I just came back from doing a beer show called What's Brewing PA. I appear on that fairly regularly.
Well, beer ain't bad either. And Carlo, you've got some whiskey books that are relevant to this as well.
I have the new single malt whiskey book, actually, which Lew was very nice to advise us on. He was a great help. And of course, my big whiskey is also out there, and how to drink whiskey.
Thanks for drinking on the edge.